Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Brian Smith with another edition of the Daily Night. Doing this as a night broadcast because I wanted to check out what Gus Malzahn had to say at the press conference, and I just got back from Orlando. And I'm kind of looking at this thing from a holistic perspective based on what Coach Malzahn said. And I quote, "We're halfway through the season. We're going to departmentalize." Well, I'm going to do the same. He's right. They are halfway through. They played 6 of 12 games. And he said they're going to look at it from a 6-game forward point of view. Okay. I get that. I'm going to look at it from just the opposite, though, the first 6, and try to grade it and kind of give an overall analysis. It's a little more difficult than normal with new staff coming off a COVID year and all the injuries, but that makes it interesting. Any feedback anybody wants to give me, you can shoot me a message. Feel free. Just do whatever you want to do in regards to the podcast. I'm going to post it on Twitter. It's obviously going to be on Facebook, and it's going to be on YouTube. So I'm sure you can find it any way you want. But this is a very weird year to grade anything. But I just thought, you know what, this will be kind of fun. It's for whatever it's worth. We're going to do our best, and it's going to have some sub points and a little bit of fun with that. But here's how I'm going to grade and what I'm going to grade. Number one, just kind of the general coaching and the situation on each side of the ball. That's obvious. I'm going to talk about how they've handled media and also how they've handled recruiting. The last of which, quite frankly, for a coaching staff any place when they take over is number one. Whether current players want to hear it or not, it's still true. You want to build a program based on the type of players that fit your system. So that's the most important. I'll save it for last. But with that, I'm going to start offense, go defense, talk a little bit about each side, maybe not just break it down completely into position because it's hard with just 6 games and the new coaches there. I can give a little bit of feedback there. But overall, it's more about offensive grade, defensive grade, coaching, and then how they've handled media is pretty unique. And then finally, again, recruiting. It's the most important aspect of this. And I don't think there's any doubt that UCF is headed in the right direction there based on the kids they have committed. So a little teaser, they've done a little better than most expect. So with the offense, let's start with this. I look at it from the perspective, hey, 3 games you had, Dylan, 3 games you haven't. How do you want to grade that? Well, a couple of things. Number one, I really liked how they adapted to him as opposed to forcing a square peg into a round hole. Can Dylan run? Yes. Is it his finest attribute? Hell no. They didn't force him to do it. That was smart. UCF and the coaching staff in general, they adapted to what he does best. Throw the deep ball and throw with timing and rhythm. That's Dylan Gabriel. UCF could have done it a lot of other ways, and there are coaches all around the country that would just love to force the square peg into the round hole and say, I was right. That's why a lot of guys get fired. So with that, I think they did a tremendous job with Dylan in running the offense. It's just that they didn't get him for very long. He got hurt. Can't do anything about it. With Mikey Keene, that is just wild. I mean, for a freshman, he's done pretty good, in all honesty. The question is, what can they do now that teams have seen 3 games of film? Let's be honest, they are playing very short. And it's why I and a lot of other people, including Cincinnati, knew that was coming in the Cincinnati game, and they just butchered them with it. They're going to have to push the ball down the field now. I'll be curious to see how, just kind of looking at stats, how they do it, because Keene is not a guy that lacks the arm strength or lacks the ability to hit a play down the field. He has instincts. He's a very cerebral young man. Let's see what they can do. I'd give him an A with Gabriel. I'm going to give him a C with Mikey because I think they didn't do him any justice in the Cincinnati game. So that's kind of my just quarterback. That's an important thing. I want to grade both. But I guess overall that's a B between the two if you want to average it out. Offensively, the running game, despite the problems at quarterback, has been amazing. Considering the trouble and everybody playing downhill, I know they didn't even play that well against Cincinnati. They still ran for over 100 yards. I forget what the exact total was. Let me see if I can find it here. But considering they didn't even score until just under 2 minutes to go in the second quarter, they still ended up running for 155 yards. Now, O'Keefe had the 51-yarder, but they would still be at 104, and they basically didn't do anything in the first half. I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all in the first half. It's like 1 yard in the first quarter. Then they figured it out. That's a good sign. They didn't give up and they didn't quit. I really liked how the O-line is developed, and they've got the ability to really block for totally different backs. Let's be honest. Johnny Richardson's totally different than Isaiah Bowser. Couldn't really get two guys that are more diverse, but with one with power and using his vision to make sharp cuts and get upfield. The other one, he wants to make one cut and just hit the burners. It's different, but the guys have adjusted and they've done well. So with that, I think that's probably the best unit, overall talent, coaching, chemistry, and everything on the entire team this year has been O-line. When again, while nobody played good against Cincinnati, let's cut to the chase, special teams included, they were bad. But the O-line, I was happy to see they got some push in the second half. So receiving core, I have no idea how to grade it because now everything has changed with Jalen out. You can't lose your dynamic playmaker at receiver and give a normal grade. You just can't do it because everybody else now doesn't have somebody next to them that can change the coverage. It's not what you practiced. It's even harder in some ways than quarterback because with quarterback, at least in today's game, 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. Today's game, the run game, the run pass option, etc., you can do things differently than what you would have, say, in 1985 or 95, 2000, even 2005. Teams are more equipped to play younger quarterbacks. For instance, the quarterback for Memphis this week, he's thrown every single pass for Memphis this year. True freshman. That's unheard of 15 years ago, but now it's not. He's averaging over 300 yards a game. He's a kid from North Texas that ended up at Memphis. He didn't go to UT, didn't go to A&M, went to Memphis. The other schools obviously missed. And I think the Memphis staff is doing one heck of a job too. So very concerned about receiver right now because O'Keefe, he had a great game, but quite frankly, him catching 70 or 60 yards on 7 catches, it's not necessarily great overall though, because again, they knew everything was coming short. Is that going to be the case with Jalen in the game? No. We're not playing with a full deck here, and it makes it very difficult. So I have no idea how to grade receiver. Tight end, I've been very disappointed in because they've dropped a couple key catches, one of which would have been a touchdown. They have their moments, but they just have not shined. That's a position, and this, again, very end, when we get to this recruit, it is paramount. Stevens, the kid coming in from Jacksonville, will get a chance to play next year, in my opinion, as a flex tight end. They need more help there. I think they should take another tight end if possible, depending on how the numbers work out. It's very complex this year. Tight end, I would give a C, and I'm being pretty generous. They just have not produced the way they should. It is what it is. They don't have a lot of depth there, and they're adjusting to a new scheme as well. I guess if I had to grade receiver, I'd say BB minus. They've had some moments, but not enough explosive plays. Gus talked about it. I just watched the press conference again. We got to have more plays. When you get the ball, you got to make them. That was Gus, unsolicited. He's right. Again, O'Keefe, he had 7 catches for 60 yards. It's an 8.6 average. Is that his fault? Not really. It's a microcosm of the entire situation. Everybody in the stadium knew who they were going to try to throw the ball to. Do you think Cincinnati was going to rally to the ball? Yeah. They'd rally to the ball against anybody, but especially number 4. He's on their board. Like, this is the guy we have to stop. You can't be limited at receiver. Not in today's era. You just can't have your top guy out. It doesn't work. Moving to defense, this is something I wrote about today. It's bizarre how they've done. First game of the year, they played against what we thought was going to be a quality run game in Boise State, and they stink at running the ball, by the way. They haven't gotten much better. I'll pull it up here while I'm thinking of it, just for the entertainment value. But Boise State did not have a mobile quarterback. Neither did the second team, Bethune-Cookman. He was very accurate, and I liked him a lot, but not mobile. And when those teams play UCF, they get stoned. Just straight up get stoned. And to be really honest with you, I was kind of taken back by that. I knew they would have some trouble with Louisville and Malik Cunningham as a unit, especially the D-line. He's just an incredible athlete. That being stated, There is no way in the world you should get destroyed by Louisville's rushing attack when they were struggling against Eastern Kentucky a week before. They failed miserably. Just peaks and valleys. UCF has not figured out the ability to make anything hide or tails with the running quarterback. I just pulled up Boise State. They are pathetic at running the ball. I was wrong. They're not bad. They are pathetic. They are 126 out of 130. That was fool's gold. They held them to like 49 yards minus another 29 for that punt that went over the punter's head, which is still good. But Boise State's offensive line stinks. I wasn't impressed with them when I watched, but looking at this stat, holy cow, that's terrible. And then they played Bethune-Cookman, who just can't run the ball. Against a quality offense, UCF has not done anything to stop the run this year. And now they have Ricky Barber trying to come back. He played like 4 snaps, and then Klee is out. I am concerned we're going to start seeing 200-plus yards each and every game if there's a true NFL-level talent in the backfield for the other team. I just don't think they have enough talent up front at D-tackle to rotate, because now not only do you lose a playmaker, here's the math again. It doesn't matter what team it is. If you lose your top guy and he takes 45, 50 snaps a game, not only do you lose his playmaking skills, you're going to have more of those 3 to 5 yard plays for the other team running the ball right at you to keep drives alive. So instead of just replacing 45, 50 plays, you're replacing 55, 60 as they score, because the other guys just aren't as good. Instead of somebody getting 1 or 2 yards, they're getting 3 or 4. That just adds up. It's all math. And then those guys also, they're taking up those snaps plus their own. Certain guys just can't play 40, 50 snaps. So how in the heck do you grade the D-line? They are in a terrible situation. There's no fix. There's none at all. So to Gus's point earlier today at the press conference, I've thought about this numerous times. I already wrote about it once. And this is just the bottom line, and it's not very friendly, but it's true. UCF is in complete rebuild mode now with these injuries, as far as I'm concerned, on defense. Complete rebuild mode. Because you have to have straight up, flat out NFL talent all across your front to compete with the spread offenses today. They have every advantage known to man. Tempo, substitutions. Like if they don't substitute and you run a guy off, they snap it. Defenses guys have to chase the whole game. It's harder to play D. And now you're shorthanded at a spot. Well, you had a couple of guys that are NFL level talent. You know, maybe I'm projecting too much on Ricky, but I really liked what I saw out of him first couple games. His upside's through the roof. And then he gets banged up. I don't even know what his injury is, but he's tried to go the last couple weeks and he hasn't been able to. Man, I tell you what, they cannot stay healthy at certain spots, and D-tackle's been the worst. And that's just a critical position anyway. With that, how do you grade linebacker when they were going against teams that could not run at the quarterback position? They kicked the crap out of them. And even when they played a team like the option, Bryson Armstrong had 22 tackles. They just weren't getting enough plays up front. And when you play a system team like Navy, it's just terrible football to watch. For one, I hate it, but they just didn't get plays in the backfield, and they did not adjust at all to the pitch. At some point, that has to be graded regardless of injuries, and that's more on the coaching staff. They do not cover the edges well at all. It's something is wrong there with the coaching, because Navy's, they're well coached. Kenny Matamalola, I think I pronounced his name right, tremendous football coach, but he doesn't have much talent. Their little slot back who had like no offers had 85 yards on 11 carries against UCF. That's terrible. You got to be graded on that. At best, with the injuries and everything, I don't know how to grade it truly. I would say C overall. D-line, I'm not going to touch because of the injuries. I have no idea. Once they started and guys started going in and out of the lineup, getting banged up, no idea. Tremont Morse-Brash was suspended for the first couple games. That's just been a disaster. You can't have all those guys out. They haven't had a full unit the entire year. Linebacker, they did have Eric Gilliard transfer, but he had been beaten out by Tatum Bethune. I'll give them a B-. They floated the ball. They've run really well. They've gotten some picks. They've done a lot of things that you need to do. The only thing left now, and It's not going to work because of D tackle, but what they need to do is start creating more plays behind the line of scrimmage. Well, everything is layered. It's based on what your D line does. They have to occupy O line for a longer time for that to happen. And right now, they're just not being able to do it, especially inside. Again, not as talented and taking more reps. Terrible combination. So I'm going to go B- with the linebackers. In the secondary, quite frankly, I'll be nice and say C. They're not making enough plays. They're just not. I don't even have to get deep into that. Everybody knows it. There's just not been enough. I did see an uptick the last couple of weeks in key plays, but there's just so many breakdowns. Is it just talent? Is it scheme? Is it getting used to things? I think it's a combination of everything, but they don't have anybody in that secondary you go, that's a guy that's going to the NFL for sure. They got some guys that have the physical tools, both the corners. I mean, they probably have 4 or 5 guys. You just look at size. Like the Adams kid, the freshman, he's got tremendous skills. He's a true freshman, and he played quarterback in high school. It's going to take some time. But they are light years away from where they need to be in the secondary because you got to be able to play straight up man coverage and take things away from teams. Play after play after play just because we're better than you. Corner is the closest thing to a basketball game. There's nowhere to hide. Let's start there. When you're on an NBA court, a college court, or even a high school court, doesn't matter. When a guy clears out and you're one-on-one with him, everybody in the gym sees it. Well, everybody sees it. It's 53.5 yards wide, and it's 100 yards long. It's called a football field. There's nowhere to hide. They're just getting beat too often in one-on-one coverage. And to that point, some of the safeties are too, but it starts at corner. UCF has to recruit better. So with that, I'm going to briefly touch on the media thing. Some good, some bad. I really do enjoy Gus at the press conferences. He's a gracious guy, and he's fun to be around. He gets along with everybody in the media that comes to the podium. We enjoy him. With that being said, there are a couple of things that need to change post haste. There's just no nice way to say it. He likes to control everything in the message. That doesn't work with a new program, number one. And number two, this is just a fact. They lose a game, Travis is not available for a press conference. They win a game, he is. That's not a good look. It's just not. Travis Williams has to be accessible every single week to the media. Let me say that again. Travis Williams has to be accessible to the media every single week, period. If he's not, I know he's getting hammered as it is. It's going to get a lot worse. There is no shortcut here. He's making a heck of a lot of money to coach football. It's a good gig. You got to take it. Is it going to be friendly? Probably a little better at UCF than it would be at Auburn. I can guarantee you that. But if you can't take the negativity, or if Gus doesn't want him, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't work. Has to be available to the media. Come hell, come high water, every single week. If not, pretty soon he's going to get hammered from the media. It's going to happen. It's not something that I'm just talking about. I know there are a lot of other guys who are not very happy about it either. It's got to happen. Further, there needs to be other coaches, not just Travis, that are available. This is UCF. This is not a team that's in the top 5 and you're protecting everything. This is not like Georgia or something. Kirby Smart's a control freak, but got to be available. That's the only qualm I have. Everything else has been tremendous. I mean, everybody's cool around the program. Everybody's nice, and the media likes it. With that, the last thing, and this is the one thing, thank goodness, has gone very, very well, and that's recruiting. Football recruiting at UCF is unique because now you're selling the Big 12, Power 5, etc. It's a heck of a lot easier, obviously, and it's been talked about 1,000 times on this show and every other YouTube channel and every other sports site. UCF to the Big 12. It's going to help. They have 12 kids committed, ironically, and they've done a good job. They have a lot of kids that can play at Florida, Alabama, etc. in this class. Now, they've taken some guys that would be reaches by the standards of, say, Alabama, but athletically they can play there. It's just coaching them up. That's part of being a developmental program. UCF is straight up a developmental program until otherwise proven. And that leads to this. Gus made mention about 3-4 weeks ago that they needed to evaluate, just keep getting to know kids, building relationships. Completely correct. The 22 class, the one we're currently in, while it's good, they will have much more success 23, 24, and on. Longer relationships, knowing coaches longer, parents, and everything else. The recruiting is going to go up. Plus, in 23, you're actually on those different networks, whether you like it or not. It's just imperative because recruits like it. They control the narrative. Not Gus Malzahn, hell, not even Nick Saban. The recruits control the narrative. It's on their time frame because they said so. That's it. I just went and saw 2 kids that UCF desperately wants at Kissimmee Osceola. John Walker, Derek LeBlanc. Fantastic players. Also, they have Bo Masco. His dad played at UCF. They haven't offered him yet, which is surprising to me. A really good player. But that's just an example. Get those kids on campus. You got an extra year. If they were 22 kids, they'd have no shot. 23, they might get one of them. Who knows? And they're both D linemen. They would play immediately at UCF. Both of them. One's an in, one's a tackle. But that's the whole point. UCF knows it's a long-term gig. We're building this thing. That's Gus's line about it. It's a good line. We're building this thing. He knows it's a long-term trajectory. Fair enough. I can't disagree with it because it wouldn't matter if you gave Nick a staff with every Hall of Fame coach that he wanted all time in their prime. At the end of the day, it's about talent. UCF doesn't have near enough in the starting lineup and definitely not enough depth-wise. And that's the problem. Once injuries hit, there's not a lot you can do. And that's where we are right now. Really honestly, I mean, why would anybody pick UCF to beat Memphis this week based on how they just played? They don't have the depth. Memphis is scoring 35.9 points a game. Do you think UCF could beat them if they scored 35 against them? I don't. That's part of the problem. You got the only way around that is recruiting, and that just takes time. There's no shortcut. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk a lot about recruiting. Again, it is just vital. We are now, in my opinion, once you pass the 15th of October, it is recruiting time. What does that mean? We are 2 months from National Signing Day, the first one. In UCF, I've heard some good things. There's a few kids they're probably going to get, one of which I'm really excited about. I have no idea on time frames. I'll let the kids do their thing when they announce on Twitter or whatever it is they're going to do. But there's a situation where at some point it's going to kick into high gear. I haven't heard about a bunch of official visits or the exact date yet. They're probably going to do something in December. With that, do not be surprised because of how it is now. Kids don't answer their phones anymore. They're not going to take phone calls from me or anybody else for the most part. It's just real. I mean, every now and then it's just random. So I've all but given up on that. I just go through the Facebook or Twitter, etc. The point is this: UCF's recruiting class is going to be a lot better than a lot of other people think. And you watch. There's going to be some kids committed to other schools right now that end up signing with UCF in either December or February, if they want. Hopefully I'm able to give some backstory. There might be a few other kids they turned down. It's touchy. I don't want to defame anyone, but UCF is a little more high up the ladder than what a lot of other fans from other schools want to know. And especially considering the following, in my lifetime, this has never happened. There is not a single program in the state of Florida right now that is good in Power 5 or Group of 5 or anything else. Not one. So anything can happen in recruiting because it's all about what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? So with the grades, recruiting, I'm going to give an A-. Nothing's perfect in recruiting. Even Alabama's isn't perfect. There's always somebody else you could have got, but it's also incomplete. But I like the plan and the path. I love that part. I give that an A+ because they know they can't build Rome in a day. Too many coaches get impatient and they get frustrated, etc. Well, let me tell you something. When you just build it slowly and you don't push too fast, you allow the right players to come in, then you're not losing guys that were never going to help you anyway. Do not get infatuated with stars and rankings. It's helpful, but you have to have guys that are going to be at your program for the long haul. That's what Gus is recruiting for. Therefore, he needs to do that in a literal sense. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. Tomorrow is going to be a fun day. I'm going to do a lot of stuff with recruiting. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about nationally some of the guys. I mean, the USC job is open. The LSU job is open. I will be shocked if Manny Diaz is not fired within the next 2 or 3 weeks at Miami. He stinks. I've said that for over a year. He stinks, and he will continue to stink. He's not a head coach. When are they going to fire him? That would be 3 of arguably the top 10 to 12 jobs in the country open at once. I think it's fascinating, and it's going to impact UCF big time because all the coaches start moving around when jobs like this come open. Who comes open? When they leave, which recruits are impacted? That's my territory. So I love that stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. So everybody, I just hope you had a safe day and a blessed day. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.